Hello everyone! It is time to do the near impossible. Be excited about brand new lore and still give out a spoiler-free review. But that is what we're going to do today. Shadows Rising, the upcoming novel written by Madeleine Roux, is set to release next week, 14th of July. Some review copies have been sent out, but I wasn't lucky enough to get one of those. However, for some reason, my local bookstore, they sent me an email like, "Hey Noble, we know that you ordered Shadows Rising yesterday. Yeah, it's already here. It's ready to be picked up. Go and enjoy." A couple of hours later, and the pages were devoured. It reads smooth as silk. And where sometimes the new novels, they take forever to pick up, right? They need to establish what happened before to get you up to speed on things. This one, it just dives right into it, and it will explain it along the way. Small little snippets here and there, but never losing sight of what story it wants to tell. Meaning that, knowing more lore beforehand will definitely add to the experience, as it always does, but it's not necessarily required. So looking at the story, Battle for Azeroth, it left us at the end of the Fourth War, with the Alliance and Horde rising up against War Chief Sylvanas. All signs were pointing at another siege of Lor'themar, but instead it ended with a Mak'gora, Saurfang versus Sylvanas, and while the Orc knew that he could not win this fight, he was able to claim victory and expose the Banshee Queen to the rest of the Horde.
The Horde is nothing!
With the War Chief gone, the Horde now has a council. An armistice is signed between the two factions. Once more, Alliance and Horde are trying to go towards peace, but that's easier said than done. Not everybody is down with just forgetting what happened during Battle for Azeroth or even before that. Tyrande, she has embraced the Night Warrior ritual. Gen, he lost a whole lot to Sylvanas and wants her head. Illyria and Turalyon, they know the hunt is on for the undead Windrunner sister. With Princess Talungi, she is still reeling from the loss of her father, and now that bargain that is passed on to her with Ponsandi. Are all of them just supposed to let go of all of that, forget what happened, and hand in hand we're going to frolic through the Shadowlands, just ignore what happened before?
Horde, Alliance. We've come to this crossroad again and again, Jaina. It always falls apart. What's different this time?
We are.
Hell no. And that is where Shadows Rising comes in. Dealing with that period of time. Deep diving into characters and the world of Azeroth. It's not just the main characters that you know, like the King of Stormwind and the War Chief of the Horde. No. There are many different characters that we get to follow. We get a glimpse of what they're thinking, how this new situation is going. The ending of Battle for Azeroth, especially when it comes to the faction war, it felt a little bit meh. Alliance and Horde, they fought each other, we got to the Siege of Orgrimmar, we sign a little paper, and we just forget about it again, like Warlords of Draenor style. But here we see that the world of Azeroth is living and breathing. People have emotions, memories, their own points of view. It's all nice to say like we're forming a council now, it's all nice to say like we're going for peace now, but there is more to it. There is a road to walk, there are minds to change or not change at all, and that is what Shadows Rising does. On the cover of the book, we see 3 prominent figures. There's Nephanos, Talungi, and Anduin. Of course, there's also a major threat, a major plot point that's going on. And since we see the Banshee Queen's beloved smirking at Talungi, those plans are not good for any of us. We have seen where this story is going to take us. At the top of Icecrown, Helm of Domination in her hands, Sylvanas Windrunner shatters the helmet, shatters the veil between this world and the next. This world is a prison, and she will set us free, whatever that might mean. That makes Shadows Rising the book in between, somewhat of a bridge between this expansion and the next. That's it, and it's always hard to predict without the entire pre-event that's not available for testing quite yet. But from what I've seen so far in the alpha and read in this book, it's not going to be a requirement to understand what is going on in the next expansion. It doesn't seem to be like War Crimes, for example, which explained a lot of details about how Warlords of Draenor began, while the game itself, it didn't really do so. Or like The Shattering, where some major events happened just off-screen. That doesn't seem to be the case, and that's also a great thing, as the game should make all the story available. But what it does offer, the book itself, is so much more insight in what is going on. It's going to add more depth to your gaming experience. It's going to set up certain things that will be further evolved in the game, but it's not necessarily a need-to-know basis. And you can tell that this story was written by someone who really loves the lore, as it will recall some obscure things that made me go, oh yeah, that did indeed happen at some point, which was really great. It's always nice to see that certain events and certain characters are not left forgotten. You might be able to tell from my enthusiasm that I'm a big fan of the book. I cannot wait for the audiobook, which is going to be narrated by Talanji's voice actress. I can't wait to hear the delivery. What especially stood out for me while reading this was how well the characters were captured and portrayed without having to adjust the language. And it's a difficult point to convey, but you know how sometimes in the game, when you're talking to a dwarf, they'll like scramble the text up to make it sound like a dwarven accent? This book, it doesn't really do that. And yet it still conveys what kind of character you're dealing with. You will know, like, oh, that is a Talanji, that is a Navanos, just by the way that they're written, just by the way that they act. And that's really nice. It just reads very smoothly. It has a fair bit of humor. Like, I was reading it on my couch and I was going like, ha ha ha. And I was reading the book and I'm like, I'm sitting here alone. Why am I laughing to myself? But there's a fair bit of humor and subtlety in the writing. And of course, darker parts. Darker parts. I've mentioned this before. There's been books like the Illidan novel, which has very gruesome transformation of the demon hunters. There's been books like the Unbroken, which has the really gruesome transformation of Draenei into the Broken. This one, it shows the desperation, right? The desperation of trying to bring Sylvanas to justice, and that certain people will cross some unexpected lines in order to make that happen. And I'm all for it. It was so good to read. Can't wait to share it with you all. Can't wait till you all have the book in your hands and we can all be like, oh my god, that was so good. For you mighty lore lovers, there are some delicious lore nuggets wrapped in a blanket of just fun storytelling, which makes this one definitely worth the pickup. You shippers out there will not be displeased. If you're deep into the lore, you might encounter a small thing that doesn't really line up with the lore that's been established. I won't spoil it, of course. Maybe it's a nice treasure hunt if you do get the book, but it's so very minor. It doesn't matter for the overall story, and I might just be wrong. We'll talk more about that and dive deeper into the nitty-gritty of it when the book is actually available. For now, we'll end this spoiler-free review. Shadows Rising, I would recommend to go pick it up. You can either read it in a hardcover, you can read it on a Kindle, or you can get the audiobook, which it will read it to you. Or, of course, you might get lucky and you could give your local bookstore a call and be like, hey, do you guys have Shadows Rising already? Yeah, you do? Okay, well, Noble sent me. I'm gonna pick it up right now. I'm on my way. Hold on to that book. I need it in my life. You might be as lucky as that as well. Anyways, this will end my review. I hope I wasn't overly excited. It was a fun book to read, and I can't wait to listen to it. Yeah, thank you very much for watching, everybody. And until next time, see ya!